Tonight, I'm pulling back the curtains. No sugarcoating, no easy answers, just the raw, unfiltered truth about what really happens when you argue with a narcissist, why it feels so soul-crushing, and most crucially, the one counterintuitive strategy that psychologists, survivors, and experts all agree is your only hope for peace. Ready to hear the brutal reality and learn how to safeguard your sanity, your dignity, and perhaps even your future? Stay right here, because what you're about to discover might finally give you the clarity and courage you've been searching for, to step out of their maze and reclaim your own life. Arguing with a narcissist is unlike any ordinary conflict or debate you've endured. It's a surreal, exhausting psychological battleground where reality, logic, and even your sense of self feel like casualties, and it all begins innocently enough, maybe with a misunderstanding, a request for fairness, a gentle correction, or sometimes just an unavoidable disagreement. But almost instantly, you sense the atmosphere turn electric with tension, every word watched, every facial tic scrutinized, as the narcissist's hypersensitive radar detects any threat to their fragile, grandiose sense of superiority. Because what's really at stake for them, beneath their armor and outward bravado, is not the topic but their entire identity, a persona that cannot bear to be questioned, corrected, or, worst of all, exposed as anything less than flawless. So your mere disagreement triggers, not reflection, but their deepest terror, setting off an entire arsenal of psychological defense mechanisms, deflecting blame, accusing you of pettiness or incompetence, rewriting the facts of the very conversation you're in, all while subtly or explosively undermining your credibility, twisting your motives, and, most insidiously, making you doubt your own perceptions, until you're left reeling, confused, and increasingly desperate for validation. The more you try to use logic, empathy, or evidence to prove your point, the faster you find yourself caught in a shifting maze. They'll move the goalposts, drag in ancient history, invent irrelevant tangents, pretend to misunderstand, or weaponize your own words, turning any small concession into ammunition in their endless campaign to remain unassailable. And what's worse, you'll start to feel the slow erosion of your own reality, as if you're screaming into a storm that only grows wilder with every attempt at reason. This is the true horror of narcissistic gaslighting, the slow, excruciating destruction of your trust in your own mind, a process as subtle as it is devastating, leaving you second guessing not only your arguments, but your memory, your sanity, maybe even your worth, until the emotional bruises become daily, invisible aches. You'll try all the typical strategies, hearing them out, explaining calmly, pleading for empathy, maybe even submitting your own vulnerabilities in the desperate hope that honesty can break through. But to the narcissist, sincerity is an opportunity, a soft spot to exploit, because vulnerability is not recognizable as courage, but only as weakness that validates their need for dominance. And every emotional cue you give, frustration, sadness, anger, simply feeds their craving for attention, narcissistic supply, reinforcing the sick, cyclical nature of your bond. You may begin to notice yourself altering your behavior, picking your words ever more carefully, tiptoeing around their triggers, avoiding confrontation at all costs, or, conversely, flying into justifiable rages after yet another instance of their denial or cruelty. But even your justified anger gets twisted, used against you as proof that you're unstable, irrational, or the real aggressor, further isolating you from friends, colleagues, or allies who haven't seen the private face of their manipulation. And yet, deep down, you'll cling to hope that maybe this time your logic will land, or if you just phrase things perfectly, or show the right evidence, or stay calm enough, or get them at the right moment, they'll finally see your side. But this is the most brutal and hidden cost. You waste months, sometimes years, in this hope, trapped in an emotional merry-go-round of argument, apology, escalation, withdrawal, and anxious reconciliation, a cycle that, tragically, the narcissist finds reinforcing because your continued participation, your emotional labor, your inability to disengage all reassure them of their control and your devotion, while you get sicker, lonelier, more self-doubting as time passes. And it can get worse. The narcissist may recruit others into the argument, subtly turning colleagues, friends, or family against you in what's called triangulation. So even your objective reality gets undermined by a chorus of enablers or bystanders who have either been charmed, intimidated, or simply bewildered into silence. And now the fight is not just between you and them, but you against an entire social web that quietly reinforces their unreality, making the emotional pressure sometimes so unbearable, people develop anxiety, depression, PTSD symptoms, or decide to simply surrender, suppressing their own needs or truths in hope of short-term peace, an emotional bargain that never truly pays off and only makes your internal suffering worse. And so the question arises, what actually works? What's the strategy? What's the secret weapon? When you realize arguing with a narcissist means playing by rules designed to ensure your defeat. The blunt, sometimes despairing answer, gleaned from decades of psychological research, therapy, survivor stories, and brutally honest self-reflection, is that the only winning strategy is, paradoxically, to step outside the game entirely. You must stop hoping for closure, validation, or understanding. Must release your hope that the narcissist can or will ever get it, and instead become surgically precise in your interactions. Set boundaries in ironclad, unemotional language. I will not discuss this further. Here is my decision. This is not up for debate. Refuse to participate in their provocations, and when the storms of accusation, ridicule, or emotional blackmail come, as they will, you resist the urge to defend, explain, or over-justify. You simply disengage, mentally and emotionally, refusing to provide the drama, attention, or emotional energy they crave. For it is only your reactivity, your anguish, your attempts at reason that keep their cycle spinning. And this isn't just hard, it's excruciating, especially if you're someone who craves connection, fairness, or justice, because you must mourn the loss of the relationship you wished for. Let go of the fantasy that the right words will finally break their shell, and come to terms with the brutal fact that healing, truth, and closure may only come from within yourself, not from them, nor their acknowledgement, nor their apology. In practice, this means learning the art of the gray rock, making your responses boring, minimal, unreactive, refusing to rise to their bait or feed their outrage. And sometimes it means limiting or severing contact, especially if your safety or well-being is at risk, answering only what's strictly necessary and otherwise protecting your energy like a precious resource. Because to a narcissist, your outrage, your pain, and even your need to be heard are invitations to keep arguing forever. This boundary setting may cost relationships, opportunities, sometimes even jobs or family connections, and sadly, society, even well-meaning friends, may not always understand, may judge you as cold, overreacting, or unfair, because the hidden manipulations of the narcissist can be nearly invisible to outsiders, making your isolation, guilt, and confusion deeper still. But this is precisely when self-compassion, therapy, and trusted support networks become lifelines, places where you rebuild trust in your own perception, rekindle a sense of sanity chipped away by years of being doubted, gaslit, or shamed. And yes, the temptation to break your own no engagement policy will return again and again, especially when baited or when the narcissist suddenly acts regretful, loving, or needy, a classic move called hoovering. But each time you resist being sucked back into argument, you slowly rewire your own emotional reflexes, teaching yourself that your worth and your version of reality don't depend on someone else's approval or acknowledgement.